fourth meeting of the House of Commons Standing Committee of Government Operations and Estimates, and we're convened today to deal with the certificate of nomination of Mr. Joe Friday to the position of the Public Sector Integrity Commissioner, which was referred to this committee on Monday, March 23rd, 2015. We're pleased to have Mr. Friday here with us for this informal or formal, in fact, vetting process. But I'd like to say just at the outset, before Mr. Friday opens his remarks, is that he did send a letter to the committee that committee members will have seen to explain why he was unable to attend a week or so ago when we were interested in calling him to speak to the committee when he was nominated as the interim commissioner. We've got the letter, Mr. Friday, and we understand fully, and we accept your the apology and your explanation. The committee feels that we understand completely. Having said that, we only have 1 hour to deal with this gentleman, so ladies and gentlemen, so we will be trying to keep the questions very tight, 5-minute rounds for the questions and the answers, and at 9:40 I will ask for the question to be put so that we can make the report to the House of Commons in the routine proceedings, which will be beginning at 10 o'clock. Having said that, let's welcome Mr. Friday and ask him to please make his opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all committee members. Mr. Chair, thank you for acknowledging receipt of my letter of March 13th. Again, I do apologize to you and all committee members, and I assure you of my ongoing respect for your committee and my absolute understanding of my obligation to appear before you.
I am very honored that the Prime Minister is nominating me to the post of Public Sector Integrity Commissioner.
Agent of Parliament, one of a small number of oversight offices which exercise important and sensitive functions in the federal public administration, functions that require objectivity, neutrality, and independence.
I fully understand the importance of the position and of the function of the Public Sector Integrity Commissioner, and I would be honored to bring to it the full benefit of my experience, ability, and dedication. I also wish to underscore my full understanding that, as an agent, I am directly accountable to Parliament.
Our office was created in 2007 under the Public Servants Disclosure Protection Act as part of the federal government's accountability initiative. The office provides a safe and confidential mechanism for public servants and for members of the public to disclose wrongdoing committed in the federal public sector. The Act also helps protect from reprisal public servants who have disclosed wrongdoing and those who have cooperated in investigations. The position of Commissioner plays a central role in the accountability framework for the federal public sector. It represents a commitment to excellence in public service, and increasingly it forms part of the identity of Canada in the world as a trusted leader in good government and good governance. If my appointment is approved, my commitment will be to represent the public interest in carrying out the important and sensitive duties of the Commissioner, reporting, as all agents do, directly to Parliament. Au cours de cette année passée,
during my 7 years at PSIC, first as General Counsel, then as Deputy Commissioner, and now as Interim Commissioner, a position I've held since January 1st of this year, I have a thorough and informed understanding of not only the structure and operation of our disclosure and reprisal regime, the whistleblowing regime, but also its role in underscoring and demonstrating the essential trust that Canadians place in public institutions and public servants, and the necessity of not only maintaining but strengthening that trust. Attaining these goals requires careful judgment, knowledge of the working of the public sector, and a balanced and objective approach to decision-making on matters of significant importance.
It can be extremely difficult for someone to come forward when they have witnessed what they think is wrongdoing. I understand that reprisal can take many forms and requires a direct and clear response to not only address an individual situation effectively, but also to discourage it from happening in the future. And I also understand that all parties, including those accused of having committed wrongdoing or reprisal, have the right to be treated with fairness and justice. Parce qu'il se soit d'agir en décideur indépendant,
The role of the Commissioner as an independent decision maker is a challenging one. The whistleblowing landscape is one that is in many ways relatively uncharted. Expectations and perceptions have to be sensitively and carefully managed. But with a sustained focus on accessibility, clarity, and consistency, I know that our office can succeed in addressing wrongdoing and responding to reprisals as a means of building the continuing strength of the public sector.
Years since the office was created, we have had many tangible successes in those 8 years, in the tabling of case reports and the referral of reprisal cases to the tribunal that was specifically created in our legislation to determine and rule upon these cases, in the conciliation of some of those cases, and we've also had success in our sustained outreach to inform Canadians about our existence and mandate. The true measure of our success in many ways is that we treat each case fairly, rendering decisions on issues of significant public interest and importance in a just and equitable manner and in accordance with our Act. Si ma nomination est acceptée,
If my nomination is accepted, I would follow my predecessor, under whose leadership I was able to proudly contribute to the strong foundation of policy and operational rigor that we have today. As the new Commissioner, I would continue to build on and expand that success.
Priorities are grouped under the principles I've just mentioned: accessibility, clarity, and consistency. These principles, while distinct, are intrinsically linked. Accessibility, which is linked to awareness and knowledge, is a priority that I believe will be a permanent one for us. It is a goal and a challenge that is shared by our colleagues in the provinces and the territories with whom I meet on a regular basis, and it is shared by our international counterparts, many of whom I am also in ongoing communication with. Exprimé en termes simples,
Quite simply put, people have to know who we are and where to find us when they need us. They have to understand their options under our legislation, to make an internal disclosure within their departments, or to come to us. And they have to understand what we can and cannot do for them when they do decide to come to our office. Our efforts must continue to reach out and to clarify and also to reassure.
in this regard, I'll also focus on the continuing challenge of ensuring that our work is informed by other relevant perspectives and opinions. Our External Advisory Committee, started in 2011, will continue. It provides us with essential external points of view, and it allows us to be aware of the influence and effects of our actions. In this regard, an increased focus on the input and views of federal unions will be a priority for me as chair of this committee. Looking to the internal operations of our office, we're in a position to take stock of our considerable experience and build on the lessons we have learned to date, including guidance from the courts. To that end, I have focused on making progress on our internal policy-making process, bringing together our operations, legal, and policy teams to produce directives to guide operations more directly and more strategically, and also to provide potential users of our regime with clarity on our interpretation and application of the law. We want people to make informed choices about coming to our office. Knowing what to expect is a key part of that. This builds on our work in recent years in creating and publicizing service standards. These are timelines that we've imposed on ourselves to complete initial analyses of files and also to complete investigations. Monsieur le Président, je continuerai.
Mr. Chair, my focus will also not waver in regard to the standards of professionalism and excellence of our staff. The work we do is difficult. Our relatively small team is stronger than it has ever been. We have hired strategically and rigorously, and I've learned that attracting the right people and keeping them is a significant challenge for a small organization such as ours. After 8 years, our caseload appears to be steady, although we do not control the pace or number or type of disclosures. As things stand today, we've proven that we can work within our current budget. We are prepared for the review of our legislation that is mandated by the Act, and at the time of that review, our office will be pleased to share our observations and suggestions based on our work to date that will inform possible amendments.
Speaking, as we continue to prepare for this review, I can say that our focus will be on improving confidentiality protection and providing support to complainants of reprisal in an effort to allow them to access the full benefit of the protection under the law. I would say with confidence our Act is working, but I would also say that it can work better. And it is the responsibility of any commissioner to ensure that it is working to its full capacity and potential.
Our work requires knowledge of the structure and operations, and indeed the culture of the federal public sector. I am certain that my 22 years of federal experience will be of essential importance in fulfilling the Commissioner's duties under the Act. I have demonstrated my objectivity and my independence in the work I have done with the Commissioner to date, most importantly in those cases in which I have been the decision maker on founded cases of wrongdoing. I rely on that experience, on my judgment, as well as on my legal training to guide me in this regard in fulfilling the role.
Trust in me and to allow me and my capable, dedicated, and experienced team to fully implement the Act over the next 7 years in supporting the goal of accountability in the federal public sector. I wish to underscore that the vast majority of public servants serve Canadians with integrity and an honourable sense of service. My goal as Commissioner would be to ensure that Canada's proud tradition of public service not only continues, but that it is strengthened and that it is exemplified by the highest degree of respect for and compliance with standards of integrity, professionalism, and respect. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much for your consideration of my appointment, Mr. Chairman.
The committee may have for me at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Friday. And I'm sure there are questions, and we'll begin with the official opposition, the NDP. Mr. Matthew Ravenette, 5 minutes for questions and answers, and I'm going to be quite strict with this to get as many questioners in as we can.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'd like to begin with perhaps informing Canadians why it is that we're meeting this early. And one of the reasons why we're meeting this early is not regular time, is that the government attempted to circumvent this committee's responsibility to vet your nomination by trying to get this done by routine proceedings, which is in a few hours, which is just a farce. It's a complete contempt for the committee's responsibility in vetting you. But I know that that's not your fault, Mr. Friday, and I'm happy that you're here. And I also wanted to thank you for your apology, your written apology about what happened last week. So my first question to you is, you're largely perceived by experts in this area, particularly when it comes to whistleblowing, and because of your kind of uncritical comments of the Ouimet era of this of your office as a insider. So what can you say to Canadians that are concerned that yet another insider is being named to this position, which won't significantly improve the possibility for integrity to be upheld in the public sector?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. I would say that, first of all, I believe that a profound understanding of the public sector is necessary to fulfill the duties of the Commissioner of Public Sector Integrity. This is the domain in which we work. This is the structure within which we investigate and within which we make recommendations for corrective action. I have 22 years of experience in the federal public sector. I am proud of those 22 years. With respect to being an insider, I can say that I have only worked at one department. That's the Department of Justice. And I was there for 15 years. I have no preconceptions, no biases, no prejudices with respect to any party, to any file, at any level within the federal public service.
Thank you for that, Mr. Friday. I guess maybe what would help is to indicate what solutions you might have. There is only, 50 complaints presently. Mr. Dion came out to say when he stepped down that compared to the hundreds of thousands of employees in the public sector, that this is just bizarre. So it sends the message that this is just a symbolic function, that fundamentally there isn't much, and the people who are working in the public sector really don't have a confidence in your office to come forward. And I've heard that by whistleblowers, and I've heard that by experts. So what are you going to do to change that situation?
First of all, I would say that in order to understand the whistleblowing regime, one must look at the role that we play as an external investigator, and there's also an internal regime that is administered by the Treasury Board. I will only be able to speak, of course, about our external regime. My starting point is, as I said, the vast majority of public servants serve honestly and with integrity. When we look at the numbers of public servants and the numbers that we have a, if you want to call it a success rate or a reporting rate, of about 3%. So 3% of disclosures result in a founded case of wrongdoing. My most recent understanding of the statistics in the United States, for example, are that they have about a 2% finding rate. So I don't know if that's at all helpful in providing some further
well, it's some context,
but
what is wrong with the legislation?
I think the part of the challenge, the ongoing challenge that we face is, and this is largely cultural. I don't know if legislation is a single piece of legislation can change this, given the discussions that I have on a regular basis with the administrators and managers of whistleblowing regimes in other countries and in other provinces and territories. The issue is really one of having trust in an organization to deal with a complaint or a disclosure in an open, fair, and confidential way.
How are you going to address that lack of trust?
Well, we have a strong focus on reaching out to public servants. They are our prime stakeholders. For example, just before Christmas, we released a video that we're quite proud of, explaining to potential whistleblowers what their options are, what their rights are. We are instituting, since January, a new way to reach out to deal with public servants at all levels, using people at all levels within our organization. And I really think that our work is best represented, or our ability to respond to people is best represented by our work. So the case reports we have, the referrals we make to the tribunal, the conciliations that we're able to demonstrate are very helpful.
I'll have to interrupt you there, Mr. Friday. Thank you, Mr. Revenant. Next for the Conservatives, Mr. Chris Workington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do appreciate, Mr. Friday, you attending this morning, and we certainly appreciate this opportunity. Unlike Mr. Raviette, I can guarantee that there would be no reference to the House had this hearing not happened, and so we appreciate all parties' efforts to make this happen so that this nomination can proceed to the House in due course. But we do appreciate you, Mr. Friday, coming both here and your explanations as to why you were unavailable the other day. We know that the office that you have, the office to which you're being called, is one that's a high priority for our government. We believe strongly in the office. Obviously, we have undertaken to see the legislation and to see the office created, and we believe that it plays an important role in terms of transparency and accountability for all Canadians. There is a real sense, I guess, that communication's important when somebody's coming to your office. Obviously, you've talked a little bit about the necessity that somebody who's coming to your office knows what to expect. I think that there are sometimes reservations going to any office if there isn't a real sense as to what they can expect once they go to you. There seems to be maybe a little bit of misunderstanding about what your office can do versus maybe a resolution that can be undertaken through the Treasury Board process or through even possibly a union resolution process. Can you explain just briefly how you see your role different than some of the other resolution processes, the office that you hold differently, and how you can better explain that to people that might be in the civil service that might be looking for a resolution to a concern that they do have?
Certainly, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, I would say that one of the reasons that we have so many cases that we do not deal with is that we are not the right person to come to. We have great discretion under our Act to direct people to the appropriate place. So people come to us thinking that, for example, we might be one of the other agents of Parliament, or that we are the Auditor General, or that we are the Public Service Commission. So it really is our responsibility to clarify who we are, but also who we are not. The role that we play is also that of an independent, neutral agent. We do not represent whistleblowers. I like to say that we advocate on behalf of whistleblowing. We don't advocate on behalf of individual whistleblowers. We don't represent a party. That is a surprisingly challenging message for us to get across, but we are consistent in the clarity of our communications with disclosures, potential or real, with complainants, potential or actual, of what we can and can't do for them. I would also point out an interesting feature of our legislation is that we actually provide money to parties coming forward to allow them to seek legal counsel, to get some legal advice. But clarity in our dealing with each and every case, and dealing with each and every case in all its complexity, under the restrictions of our law is a key priority. It defines both the operational obligation we have and the operational challenge that we have.
As Commissioner, you'll play an important role not only as a commissioner in terms of a head communicator or a leader in terms of your office, but you're also you're an employer. You're so many more things than other roles within the office. Obviously, as the commissioner, you play a number of different roles. Obviously, you have quite an experience that's very impressive. Could you explain how some of those experiences contribute to your being prepared for the different positions that Commissioner will require of you? Obviously, you've served in that capacity for a little while now, and now if you're made a permanent Commissioner, you'll continue in those roles. Can you speak just a little bit about the past experiences and how they play an important role in those different roles?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. I would start by answering the question by saying that we have had our challenges within the Office of the Public Sector Integrity Commission. What I have been able, I think, to demonstrate, and which I will continue to demonstrate, is a perseverance and a resilience, and the ability to focus on success and to follow my strong, unshakable belief in the value of the role of our office, with a commitment to lead it to success. I do that bringing the benefit of my managerial and legal and operational experience to the position. I have a particularly strong background in the area of alternative dispute resolution. That is extremely important operationally, given that we have conciliation powers under our Act, but also it provides me with, I believe, a particularly collaborative approach to management, to development of the office, to development of people within the office, to communications about our office. And my training as a lawyer, I think, has given me the neutrality and objectivity that is essential.
Thank you, Mr. Friday. As reluctant as I am to interrupt you, I have to move on to Mr. Brahmi.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much. Mr. Friday, in your opening remarks, you say that much remains to be defined in terms of disclosure of wrongdoing. Could you just give me an example, one of the more significant examples of that, so that lack of definition? Well, Mr. Chairman, under the Act, the Commissioner has very broad flexibility, discretion. And so it's really up to me to define what that discretion entails. We are currently trying to define the various circumstances that we consider. Could you give us a specific example then? Well, for example, we have the discretion to reject a disclosure if, in our opinion, the subject matter is not significant enough. Now, how do you define the significance? What would the threshold be? Well, could you actually give me then a specific example of a case without giving us any names, but give us an example of that type of situation? Yes. For example, let's take an allegation of misuse of public funds, for example. Let's say a civil servant has used a taxi chit outside regular working hours, let's say. Now, is it worthwhile then to investigate that type of allegation and then to file a report and table a report to Parliament when it represents about $5 or $6? So, yes, the actions aren't acceptable, but it's not necessarily wrongdoing as such. It can be resolved outside our office. Thank you. Now, during your previous mandate, did you have to deal with any cases that you think would have required any change of your mandate under legislation? Could you give us a specific example, if so? Right now, we are actually finalizing a list of potential changes. For example, it will be very important to have the authority to request evidence, for example, that come from outside the public sector. Currently, we do not have the right to collect evidence or information outside the public sector. That is from the private sector. And from time to time, that actually is an unavoidable obstacle for us. Is this something that you raised in the past? Is this something that you raised in your previous role as something that could be improved? Yes. Could you then give us other examples of any initiatives that you took during your time there? Well, I think that reprisals, the definition of reprisals should be broadened. For a whistleblower to disclose the name of anyone or wrongdoing within the hierarchy, it's difficult, but that is something that I think should be examined. I think that what we should be doing is broadening the definition. In order to do that, then, do you think you would need a better budget, an increased budget, rather? No. No, I think we're perfectly capable of managing our workload with the current budget. Thank you. Have you ever had to deal with cases yourself or situations yourself in your previous career where, or rather mandate, where you would have needed to disclose anything? No, I haven't necessarily experienced that myself. However, there have been times when I have had to use my own skills, for example, in conflict resolution, and where I've had to communicate with an individual in order to be able to informally resolve a situation or resolve any concerns, but I have not had to deal specifically with whistleblowing.
Brad Butt. 5 minutes, please, Brad.
Thank you very, Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Friday. Welcome to the committee. Great to have you here, and congratulations on the nomination. I know we had a brief chat about some of the ideas you have for the office prior to the committee, and I think that's great. I like your enthusiasm, and I think that's a credit to you and to your to the office that you will run. What is the staff complement in the office? How many people are working with you in the department?
We currently have a staff of 25 people, not counting me in my current position of interim commissioner. The majority of those 25 are operational employees. That would be our investigators, our case analysts, our legal services team, with the focus, and my focus as interim commissioner, and I hope as commissioner will be to continue to direct our budget toward the core operations of our mandate, the heart of our raison d'etre.
When a complaint comes in about the actions of one of our public servants, is it treated differently if they are part of a union versus non-unionized employees? Do you have to work within the confines of the collective agreement and other issues with respect to dealing with the union of which the individual is a member? So are they treated differently? Is there a role to play? And how do you facilitate what I would say is, I would hope, is a positive working relationship with the union as well as with the employee that is subject to the investigation?
Mr. Chair, I would assure all committee members that all disclosures are dealt with equally, are dealt with in the same manner, dealt with fairly, with justice and equity in mind. Every disclosure, and every reprisal complainant has the right to be assisted by whomever he or she wishes. In some cases, that's legal counsel. In some cases, that's a union representative. The importance of establishing and maintaining good relationships, not only with disclosure or complainant, but whoever their representative is of extreme significance to us. That is why, Mr. Chair, on our External Advisory Committee, we currently have representatives from the Association of Professional Employees, the Association of Chief Financial Officers, the Public Service Alliance, the Association of Government Executives, and the Professional Institute of the Public Service. We feel it's very important to build a community of support, both among people who would come to our office as individuals, but also those organizations that can help and assist those people in making an informed decision about whether to come to our office. So I would see the role of the unions being very important in helping potential disclosures and complainants in making that kind of informed decision.
Yeah, I think it's important that all the parties have a fair opportunity to be involved, and so I like what you're saying about the approach you see your office taking in this regard. Is there anything specifically that you would change as you see it in how the current process works, either to make it more open, transparent, public, or the opposite side, to make sure that we're protecting individuals who, in some cases, may have been falsely accused of something? So, is there anything specific you would kind of change in the way these investigations take place?
Mr. Chair, I would say that confidentiality is a key pillar of our regime. So that any changes we might consider would have confidentiality as their driving feature. We have established timelines to allow us to hold ourselves accountable to be as required by our legislation, as informal and expeditious as possible. And just this month, I've actually started an initiative that I think reflects both reflects the difficulty in balancing my training as a lawyer and a journalist, but we are in the process of introducing a simpler form of language in our decision letters, so that there's not a lot of legal terms, there's no more Latin terms, but this is one practical example of how we are trying to make ourselves relevant on the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Friday. Thank you, Mr. Butt. Next, for the Liberal Party, Vice Chair of the Committee, Mr. Jerry Byrne.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'd like to acknowledge, Mr. Friday, that Your Excellency, looking at your resume, your bio, appreciate the fact that your excellence within the public sector is equal to your commitment to the community at large. I see you're a strong advocate of the arts, and I think that that involvement is embodied across the public sector to contribute back to the community at large. So I want to acknowledge that and say that how much we appreciate it. Mr. Friday, there was a mix-up in terms of the appearance here, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I would ask, there was some confusion as to whether or not you should appear some days ago, and there was you came to a conclusion that you should not. Did you receive any advice outside of your office in that matter? Did the Privy Council office offer you any advice as to what capacity you would be serving here, being asked to appear before the Government Operations Committee?
Mr. Chair, I would say that the Privy Council office has been nothing but respectful of my independence and of any decision with respect to that appearance being my own. I will tell you that in speaking to the Privy Council office on March 11th with respect to issues about the nomination procedure, just factual issues, it was at that moment that I realized that I was actually not the nominee. I had not been told I wasn't or I was. So it was. I think that's a demonstration of the complete neutrality that I have been the beneficiary of or subject to. With respect to my absence on March 12th, I received no advice as to what to do or what not to do from anybody. Those were based on internal discussions, based on my understanding or my misunderstanding of the purpose of my appearance on March 11th. Again, I apologize for any confusion and take full responsibility for it.
I think we appreciate your frankness on that and your openness on it. So, moving on to, with that said, in terms of the independence of the office itself, there have been issues with a previous office holder that you're aware of and that we're aware of, Ms. Ouimet. And, of course, you may be aware as well that there has never been a parliamentary committee hearing on the Auditor General's findings of Ms. Ouimet's office and the activities she did and did not partake in. As an independent officer, would you provide advice or your own perspective to this committee? Do you feel it would be worthwhile, helpful, and would you welcome a parliamentary committee having a look back at that situation so that we can learn from, we can establish best practices and learn from that situation?
Mr. Chair, I'm in the hands of the committee and of Parliament with respect to what information is needed for you to be satisfied of our independence and our professionalism and our ability to do our work. I believe that my predecessor, Monsieur Dion, did speak to some of the activities that he undertook as commissioner when he came into the office with respect to a review of closed files and reporting on those, and we did report on those in our annual report from that year.
I'll put, Mr. Friday, I apologize for interrupting, but I'll put it in this perspective. You are a whistleblower watchdog. You are a watchdog of the public service. You're unafraid, you're uninhibited, you charge in where others would fear to do so. There has been some wrongdoing, and it has been some wrongdoing within the office of the Public Sector Integrity Commissioner. Would it be your advice? Would it be your consideration? Would you give any perspective to this committee whatsoever as to whether or not there should be some oversight at a parliamentary committee level of that situation?
Of the situation from 2010?
Correct. And the Auditor General's report.
So the Auditor General's report, which is a matter of public record, is something that we'd be more than happy to be judged against, or or for there to be further look into those issues, if indeed they're still alive and still relevant. From my own personal perspective, I feel that we have moved beyond that and have quite a different organization in 2015 than we did in 2010, with a number of safeguards and a number of operational and management steps that we have taken to, I think, quite responsibly ensure parliamentarians and Canadians that what may have happened in the past simply will not or cannot happen again, given the safeguards and the
Thank you, Mr. Friday. Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Friday. Thank you.
5 minutes goes quickly. Thank you very much. For the Conservatives, Mr. Guy Lazon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Mr. Friday, and congratulations on your nomination. There was some talk about public servants, and I note that you have 22 years with the public service. I also had 22 years of service with the public service. And I think I understand the machinations of the public service because I served as a PSAC president of the union for 5 years, and then I also spent 11 years in management. So I think I have a feeling of both sides. And my experience has been, both as a union president and as a manager, is that, like you said in your comments, the vast majority of public servants are people of integrity. They're there to do a good job, and sometimes there's misunderstandings. And just to there was some mention of few complaints to your office. I think that speaks well of the system that the public service is governed by now, with the Public Service Commission, with the union, the various unions and that. And I never, in my 22 years on both sides of the fence, I never experienced an issue where it couldn't be resolved actually within the. There was the odd case, especially on promotions, where it would go to to the appeal process through the Public Service Commission. But generally speaking, most employees and most management are satisfied with the process in place. There is the odd example where some people don't feel comfortable in that system, and I guess that's where, for example, if I didn't feel comfortable with the system that's in place, I could go to you if I thought somebody was looking at, treating me unfairly. So I just wanted to put that in context. A couple of things you said in your opening comments that really, really impressed me is that you talked about accessibility, clarity, and consistency. And you also talked about an external advisory committee started in 2011. I wonder if you could just sort of give us some background on the accessibility, clarity, and consistency, which is your principles that you operate by, and also this external advisory committee. Just to tell us how that works.
Mr. Chair, with respect to clarity, accessibility, and consistency, these are hallmarks of my approach to working within PSIC, and will be the defining features of how I will lead PSIC should my nomination be approved. I think I can sum it up by saying that if people are going to come to us, they have to know who we are, they have to know where we are, they have to know what is going to happen to them when they come to us, and they have to be kept advised of what is happening, and they have to understand our decisions after we make them. And that goes to not only how we communicate our work, but actually how we carry out our work. This is important to or essential to every step in the case analysis and investigation process. The link to the advisory committee is that if we have external perspectives from members of this committee, and I mentioned 4 unions and 1 organization of executives that's on the committee. We also have a law professor from the University of Ottawa on the committee. We have the administrator of the tribunal that is associated with our office on the committee, and we have representatives of the internal disclosure process, so 2 senior officers, as they're called, from 2 departments on our committee. For us to be able to discuss what we're doing, how we're doing it, what we're planning to do with these people and get their perspective, is a marvelous investment in both clarity and efficiency, and also consistency. So I will be the chair of this new committee. We'll be meeting for the first time under my chairmanship next month, and I would like to use this committee as really a conduit to our core constituency, which is the public service.
Thank you very much, Chair. That summarizes everything that I could ever possibly ask of Mr. Friday.
Thank you,
very much.
Mr. Lazone. And by a happy coincidence, your 5 minutes is up simultaneously to your exhausting your questions. That concludes one round of questioning by our accounting. I do have one question. We have time for one more round, and the NDP has expressed an interest in one more time slot. But I do have one question in that I was involved in the early days from the creation of the Office of the Whistleblower with the Federal Accountability Act, and even earlier when we had a very high-profile case when the former Privacy Commissioner himself had a whistleblower come to our committee, this committee, and expose wrongdoing in that office. But my question is, and there was an expectation, I think, that when we finally beefed up the Office of the Integrity Commissioner through the Accountability Act, that there would be a windfall of whistleblowers coming forward, that there would be a flurry of wrongdoing exposed in the public sector, and we really haven't seen that. So either there isn't a great deal of wrongdoing going on, or whistleblowers still don't feel confident that they can come forward and tell their story without fear of reprisal. Briefly, can you, in your opinion, which is it?
Mr. Chair, I do think that there is a great challenge facing our office and facing all our colleague offices, whether in Canada or elsewhere, with respect to people feeling confident to come forward, or feeling safe to come forward. That's why I said our communications with respect to what we do and how we do it will be a permanent challenge for us. It's difficult to accept as someone who believes fully in the value of this regime and of this system, but it's something that I can't deny. And when I speak to people individually or in groups, it would be unusual for someone not to express some kind of concern. What I would say about our Act, and what I think this aspect is really of great international interest, and I think it's a model that many other jurisdictions are looking to follow, is that one of the fundamental changes from the former Office of the Public Service Integrity Commissioner to the External Agent of Parliament Office of the Public Sector Integrity Commissioner is that the legislation provides a disclosure with the choice of what route to take. They can disclose to a supervisor. They can disclose internally, because each department must have its own internal system, or they can come externally to us. In the previous system, one had to exhaust all internal options before going external. I think that change in the legislation has been of remarkable importance. Having said that, it has not fully addressed the issue of fear, of confidence, of, I don't know if it's institutional culture, if it's human nature, but it is something that we accept as a permanent feature of our professional landscape, and is something that we have to continue to address to the extent we can through our communications, through our decision-making process, through the advisory committee that we just discussed.
Well, thank you.
The importance
Mr.
of which
Friday.
I can't underscore enough.
Too much time. I will just say that the term whistleblower and troublemaker are still in a lot of people's minds, and whistleblowers might think they get marked with a stigma if there's not the anonymity associated with it, that it might interfere with your career ladder if you come forward and blow the whistle with any wrongdoing.
Mr. Chair, if there's one thing that I had the power to change, it would be those negative associations that attach to the word whistleblower. There's even debate as to whether or not we should be using the term whistleblower. Internationally, it's used, and I personally use it. I believe there's no shame attached to the term, but I do recognize
they're heroes sometimes.
I do recognize that there are negative connotations or associations that are sometimes made with respect to loyalty or disloyalty or dishonor. We say in our office that one of our challenges is to turn whistleblowing or the perception of whistleblowing from an antisocial behavior to a pro-social behavior.
Excellent. I won't take any more time. I apologize to the committee. We have time for a 5-minute round from the NDP, and then we do have to deal with an item of business. A motion from this committee has to be reported to the House of Commons. So I will give Matthew the floor. If you could keep it 5 minutes or less, please, Matthew.
So, I mean, you're right, Mr. Friday. This is about should be a socially acceptable behavior. Fundamentally, it's not about whistleblowers. It's about keeping our government honest, right? And whistleblowers do that. So they're essential to ensuring that there's accountability in this country and that there's transparency. Now, what we're not talking about, though it was kind of suggested in the chair's comments, is that this is really about the fear of reprisals. So, and whether or not the legislation is robust enough to protect whistleblowers when they do come forward. Now, you may be aware that I have tabled a bill on this that attempts to provide greater protection to whistleblowers with regards to the delay for denouncing a reprisal in the workplace due to whistleblowing. It's a 60-day limit right now. I'm suggesting that it should take into consideration a yearly work evaluation cycle. What do you think about that? Because if there's going to be reprisals, it's going to be at the next evaluation of the employee.
Mr. Chair, I would say first of all, I would agree that the heart of any whistleblowing regime is the protection against reprisal. One of the very difficult issues, and I alluded to that in my opening remarks, is that it's the subtler forms of reprisal that are the most difficult to identify. When someone blows the whistle and then immediately something bad happens to them, the precision is also almost mathematical. I mentioned as well that we are looking at producing a suite of policies to guide us in terms of being consistent and clear. The very first policy that we are working on, and we're almost completed, is actually to provide some guidelines to the Commissioner with respect to interpreting that 60 days. The law currently allows that 60-day period to be extended, taking into account the circumstances of the case, and we are working, as I speak, on internal guidelines to ensure that
that's a step
people
forward.
are treated justly and equitably.
There's a step forward, because that is a step forward. There needs to be clarity sent to the public service about that when decisions are made. Hopefully that policy will be largely disseminated.
My goal is to not only have these policies as appropriate, or these policies will certainly be shared, of course, internally, but as appropriate also shared externally, which would allow people to understand, again, what framework we bring to our work.
Now, the other issue that I want to bring up is that it's about trying to nab the perpetrators. And when this happens, often your powers are limited with regards to where you can go to get the information. Sometimes the information is outside the public sector when dealing with a contractor. Sometimes that's done on purpose, you only have the mandate to look at people who are presently active in the public sector. So do you feel like you need to expand your powers so that you could go into the private sector or question somebody who is no longer in the public service that has retired to get to the bottom of certain issues?
Mr. Chair, one of the recommendations for amending the legislation that I intend to propose is indeed allowing our office, we recognize there have to be some kind of reasonable limitations on our powers, but we would like to have access to information that is in the hands of people in the private sector. Very often, as you point out, and I agree with you, that information is often in the hands of a former public servant. Even if we could have access to information in those hands, or have the ability to accept that information, to go out and seek it, not just to accept it if it's offered to us, but to actively seek information necessary for us to complete an investigation. Fortunately, that has not posed a major practical hurdle for us to date, given the quite frankly, given the amount of information available within the public sector and the respect that all departments and public servants and deputy ministers have demonstrated when we go in to investigate, information is shared with us in total without question. We have a very marvelous level of cooperation. But yes, access outside the public sector would be an important amendment from my perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Ravigna. Thank you very much, Mr. Friday. That no one else is on the speakers list, but Mr. Workington has asked for the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Friday, for coming. We appreciate you coming and letting us grill you for a little while. And it's probably one of the more difficult job interviews that a person can undertake, one that's very public. Anyway, Mr. Chair, we on this side are satisfied with the qualifications of the competencies of Mr. Friday, and therefore I'm going to move a motion that the Chair report to the House that this committee has examined the qualifications and the competencies of Mr. Joe Friday to the position of Public Sector Integrity Commission and finds him competent to perform the duties of that position. That is a motion that I am prepared to move.
Thank you very much, Mr. Workington. You've provided the Chair with a copy of the motion. If there are any questions or any comments on the motion, debate. All those in favor of the motion, please signify in the usual manner. Hands down. Opposed, if any? The motion is carried. Therefore, the Chair will make a report to the House of Commons in 20 minutes or so from now that the committee has examined the qualifications and competence of Mr. Joe Friday to the position of Public Sector Integrity Commission and finds him competent to perform the duties of the position. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We will adjourn.